look, with the logistics and everything, I just don't think it's possible to do this with how tight it is, right? Because he's been burned by it twice, 2 times in a row, that sort of thing. And it really comes down to these 2 series probably, did some accommodations, but there's probably more accommodations that need to be made to really make this possible going forward. And I don't think anyone's willing to do it. Welcome to the Money Lap.
I kind of look up mid taco bite.
You don't know disappointment. Talking all things motorsports by 2 real drivers.
I appreciate being called a gritty driver.
With many, many years of experience.
We've had to do that other people didn't want to do.
The most dedicated host in the motorsports podcast world.
Weren't we supposed to have somebody come on our show as a guest?
No, we did it.
Did we?
Yes.
Yes, for our 1-year anniversary.
And we definitely know what we're doing. Remember, talk through your mic.
I'm talking past it like this.
Well, if you just pointed it.
Differently.
Okay.
Never mind. Never mind.
Oh.
Never mind.
Let's
the
talk about
standard is
race
like-
cars. God's
This
sakes.
is our worst show ever. He also got the memo in black. That's good. Glad you got the memo on wearing black.
Huh? Are you wearing black?
Yeah.
Look at us go. We're all
Love
wearing
that.
black.
Team effort.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm just going to go, and you just figure that out, Josh. So, hello, welcome to Money Lap. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined as always by my good buddy, Landon Cassill. This is our show about all motorsports, and this past weekend was and is known as and was possibly the last greatest weekend in motorsports, which means we're about to have the greatest show in Money Lap history. And I have to say, there was more history made today on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, when I got into our showroom here on the platform we use. Landon was actually here before me. What do we owe the honor, Landon? Are you just that excited about what we saw this past weekend that you could not wait to be here to record it?
Truly. I'm that pumped. Let's talk about it. We need to talk about racing.
That is exceptional stuff. Gotta love it. We can start with possibly which was the best race of the weekend. It's also the longest. That was the Coca-Cola 600, the NASCAR Cup Series, for the first time on Amazon Prime, streamed entirely there, not on broadcast television. 400 laps of what was a very, very compelling race, a sold-out crowd, which was also the case for the Indy 500, but really a race that if you just looked at the scoring afterwards, you'd be like, oh, William Byron dominated. But that's not the whole story. Denny Hamlin was up there fighting with him. Tyler Reddick at times. Carson Hocevar was up there before he blew a motor. But in the end, William Byron loses it to Ross Chastain, who has an incredible last stint in a backup car, which was wrecked in practice after they had a tire failure, and goes last to first with an amazing pass down to turns 1 and 2. But the key to this whole race, which really stuck out to me, was a couple things. First and foremost, we talked about it all weekend. I experienced it in the truck series on Friday night. On Saturday, we saw it in the Xfinity series, and that is just how damn bumpy and tough turn 3 and 4 is at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Is it getting worse?
It is getting worse. And
It's always been bad.
But it's getting worse, and I'll tell you why it's getting worse. And I was able to point this out to a couple people. Basically, you have the ingrained bumps in the racetrack, which you can actually see the ripples. If you look at the TV coverage in a really high def screen, you can see the ripples of where like the track is literally rippled. I relate it to a couple things. One, I call it high frequency bumps that are almost like a whoop section on a motocross track. The other part of that is if you look really closely at the racetrack, you will see that they're constantly patching and sealing the racetrack. And those sealers and those patches are adding to the bumps. And so it's not only losing grip, it's causing even more bumps and high frequency bumps. So when you get sideways there, which we saw Kyle Larson spin out there, Carson Quapple spin out in the Xfinity race, all sorts of people have been sideways, getting in the wall. I did it a couple times in the truck race. Basically what happens is your car starts to literally, as you get sideways, start to hop across the racetrack and skip across those bumps and those sealer patches and that sort of thing, which has already made a track that I like to bring back its old nickname, the Beast in the Southeast, back. It really is because of what's going down in 3 and 4, and it showed up in the next gen car in a big way.
Was the tire any different than in years past or anything? No. I felt like the track. It's hard for me to pinpoint if that track changes or if it's just dependent on the nuances in the tire that Goodyear brings. That just different batches of tires or different, compounds or whatever that they've brought have just driven across the bump differently, make you feel like the track's getting worse when it's really just a tire that's a little bit different.
The only thing I would say is that all 3 series struggled with it. And, the Xfinity and the trucks are on the same tire, but the Cup doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Cup Series. So I believe it's getting worse. I believe you can see it visually. I went and looked at it when I got there.
Isn't it crazy that track was repaved in, 06 or 07?
Yeah.
And it still has that feel of just that same pavement that it was, that it was when it was brand new.
Yeah, well, it's that polymer pavement they don't use anymore that doesn't have any aggregate to it. So it's why we don't see, we see a second half of fall off in the Xfinity car, but we don't see as much as you would probably think of a track this age by this point, because it has that super special pavement they don't use anymore. Daytona had the same pavement. What's that?
What were they doing back then?
They were thinking about longevity and saving money as opposed to entertainment. You just put them NASCAR cars on a racetrack, Landon, you're going to sell out. You're going to sell 250,000 tickets. That became not the case 20 years later, as we know. But big crowd this past weekend was great to see. Just seemed like there was a lot of enthusiasm for motorsports as a whole. I want to talk about the topic, though, which was the dirty air, right? And we've talked about this a lot, and it's becoming, as people have learned the next-gen car and how to manipulate the air in it, and especially as the leader to defend, and we've seen this for the last couple of years, it becomes a topic. But this became a really big topic at the end of the race because William Byron basically lost the lead from what he believes was the lap car of Joe Logano in front of him, putting dirty air there. They had Denny Hamlin in the mix as well, and that allowed Ross Chastain to get the run that he needed to eventually pass William Byron. I also think that's discounting the speed Ross had, considering he sort of ran him down through that whole run. And yes, it's a thing, but I don't think it's what took that dominant race car of the 24 from winning that race versus Ross and the speed he had in that last percentage of the race. I also think there is something to be said, and we talk about it often. If you're the leader and you're at the front all race long, there is a tendency to get behind in the adjustments that need to be made, right? And if you look at how this went down, there's just a part of me that thinks maybe, obviously dirty air, that sort of thing played a part. But did the 24 team not keep up with it because you get in a bind of do we make large adjustments? We probably shouldn't, that sort of thing. Whereas you're the one car, you got nothing to lose. You're just trying to get further forward in the field, that sort of thing. And I think we see this often is why you have a leader that's been dominant sort of not be as dominant late in a race compared to someone else, especially in a 600 miler. 4 hours and 25 minutes was the official race time. That's a lot of time to keep up with the track.
Well, that's a great point. And probably is the case of what happened. But I will point out that doesn't that seem kind of unusual to you for that race? Because a lot of times it seems like the Coke 600 has had its dominant driver that just ultimately does dominate the whole race and win it.
You're thinking Martin Truex a couple of years ago? What did he lead every lap, basically?
372 of 400 laps or whatever.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it has its moments, but I think in this case, just say, it was just the dirty air of the 22 that allowed the one car to get there and get by. I just don't think that's the case. He was
that track goes through
faster.
So much change. And that's where I personally had this feeling of just motorsports purity, love for the purity of motorsports this weekend, that I was like, does it even have to be a bad race to just love the Coke 600 and the Indy 500? And dare I say, even the Monaco Grand Prix, although that was a bad race.
That was a bad race. We'll talk about
it. Does it have to be, there's just something about that 600 miles, that the true endurance test. I don't think there is such a thing as a bad race. I don't even care if Martin Truex or William Byron leads 350 laps. It's just amazing to watch a race start in full sun, go through the changes that it goes through, the pit cycles, all of that stuff. I mean, that's one race to make it even better, to go back to its roots. I wish it had no stages. Like they want to go a 200 lap green flag run, fine, go for it. Make a pit over and over and over again. Those pit crews, these 10-second pit stops, and these guys are doing what, 10, 11, 12 pit stops a night
Yeah. It's
in
a
this
lot.
race, 4.5 hours. I mean, it's just, I love it. I love it. It's so some of that for me, even if the race is a snoozer, there's just, I kind of like that endurance element to it. And then same feeling for the Indy 500. I know we're going to get into it, but it's like, it wasn't a good race, but yet it just was still the greatest day in motorsports.
See, and I disagree. I think the Indy 500 was a good race. We can talk about it in a second because
Okay.
there's just one more topic I want to get into from the 600. To that point, I do think, the temperature was a lot cooler than it can be in the past at this race. Sometimes this race can be really hot, and that can really make the endurance aspect even tougher.
Well, Charlotte is one of the most temperature sensitive tracks on the circuit.
Oh, by far, for sure. And it was just a very mild temperature weekend in Charlotte the whole weekend. The truck race, I had a cool shirt in there, and I run it basically every week, and I turned it off like multiple times in the race. I was too cold. It's like, okay, this is a new
Didn't
one
need
for
it.
me. Didn't need it. And then the other thing I wanted to point out from this race was our buddy Kyle Larson there. Gets, all that we'll get into the Indy 500, but gets there, gets to the lead, hits the wall leading, then spins out of the lead, which then sets him to the back of the field. They're having to fix the toe on the car. And eventually he gets involved in that wreck with Suarez and Blaney. And his interview afterwards, I don't know about you, but I felt like he looked visibly tired and sounded tired.
Well, he would be. I mean, it was a long month. He
Yep.
wrecked a few cars twice in one day. I mean, he would be tired. And I think that, that's typical of media and all of us to want to like zoom in on that and be like, are you going to do it again? Is this it for the experiment? Blah, blah, blah. And I kind of look at the result there and just go, and that's racing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're at risk of wrecking out of every race you enter. So, it's a big deal. There's a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs, a lot invested in him to run Indy and Charlotte in the same day, and a hell of an emotional burden over the course of the day between the rain delays and the cautions delaying the race. Is he going to make it? Is he not? I mean, he probably wouldn't have anyways. So I don't know. I just kind of chalked it up to it's race, and I hope they continue doing it. And I hate that it turned out the way it did. I do want to point out, and we didn't really talk about this. I was pretty busy on Sunday, but so we didn't get a chance to chat about this in real time. But what do you think about the commitment that it takes every single lap in that Indy car, right, to run the Indy 500 competitively? And the moment you are at risk of like not being able to finish the race because of the weather and those cautions, like I feel like that is just takes such a toll on Kyle's ability to run that car at its ragged edge. Like that's, to me, I was almost for him mentally checked out of the Indy 500 for him. Like his ability to drive through the field, put the car on edge, when it's just like, do you think deep down he knew that he wasn't going to make it to the end of the race? And so then do you ever is there even the slightest chance that he was sitting there behind the wheel at one point under caution or whatever it was, and it was just like, what am I even doing? You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, I was going to go down that path. And the reason I brought up the tired thing was that I felt like watching that all go down, where they're sitting there, they have to sit there for like 30 minutes, and he's looking, he's not looking. I saw Josh Wise said he wasn't looking at his watch. He was turning his heart rate monitor off. But he knows, the team knows the situation, right? They're interviewing Tony Kanaan on the side, being like, are you going to have to hop in this thing? And I sat there and I felt like that's just, there's such an emotional toll at that moment, because he knows everything behind this and all that's gone into it and all the month that's happened. And he, it all adds up to this one day. You're going to do 1,100 miles, and he just wants at least to complete it, right? The chance to complete it. And now it's just being eroded away from him, and there's nothing you can do. And I almost likened it to like, you have a meeting you have to get to, and you're in traffic, and you think about like your heart rate's a little higher, the anxiety's higher,
Right.
that sort of thing. And you're almost, sometimes you can be sweating, whatever, because you're just like, oh, I got to get there. I got to get there. I got to get there. And there's no way to fix this situation I'm in, and I can't get there, and there's no way to change it. And you think you get finally to the meeting, you get through it all, and then you're like, man, I'm exhausted. That was tiring having to get there. That's what he just went through, but trying to do it at one of the biggest races in the world and then perform at a high level. And I just was like, man, that when he got to that final interview after, getting out of the 600, he sounded tired. He looked tired. And I was like, I don't blame him. Like, if he had just run 2 races, I don't think he would be, but it was the emotional and timing toll of it all and the anxiety with all that. That's in it. It's just human that you would feel that way.
Well, and like I said, let's all first agree to the assumption that what you said, he knew what time it was. He knew what his window was going into it. So let's just agree to that assumption for just a second, right? He knew how long the rain delay had been. If we agree to that assumption, then I look at it from this perspective of how does he fully commit himself to every single lap of the Indy 500, knowing that he's 30 minutes over his limit.
Yep.
Right. And
they're going to force him to stop, basically.
And they're going to force him to stop. He knew, you have to assume, or you have to think for a second that he knew that he wasn't going to finish that race.
Yep.
And so that part of it is just very interesting to me. But I hope they do it again, because it's nobody said it was going to go perfect.
Not at all.
That's racing. That's how it goes. It
I
doesn't
really
always go the way you plan it.
Yeah, and I tweeted immediately. I was like, man, I hate how this went down. I hope he does it again. Now,
that's what makes the story even better, though.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing that he commented afterwards, and then he sort of went back on this at the Indy champion dinner they do last night, where he basically said, look, with the logistics and everything, I just don't think it's possible to do this with how tight it is, right? Because he's been burned by it twice, 2 times in a row, that sort of thing. And it really comes down to these 2 series probably, did some accommodations, but there's probably more accommodations that need to be made to really make this possible going forward. And I don't think anyone's willing to do it, right? And Justin Marks said it in the post race on Amazon, where he was like, if it was up to me, I'd do everything in my power between these 2 series to make this more feasible, right? To have a larger time frame between the 2 races, whether it's an hour, 2 hours buffer, so that, or 3-hour buffer, whatever it is, when it used to start at 11 a.m. and now it's starting at 12, whatever it is, 12:45. It's just made it such a tight schedule that, yes, by the numbers, it's feasible if everything goes perfect, but it's just with knowing racing and weather and everything that can happen, and what you saw on this day with even Scott McLaughlin wrecking on the pace lap, there's so many things out of your control that the buffer is just too tight, right?
I don't know. I hate to give up on it like that. I'm also not the one stroking a check for Kyle Larson year after year to attempt this. And so, I feel like it should be hard enough to make happen that at least just one person tries it every, 6 out of every 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not saying every single year someone tries a double, but I hope Kyle Larson tries it continuously until he succeeds at even just right now, or just succeeds at running the double, let alone winning both of them.
Yeah.
But completing them, I think would be a phenomenal achievement. And then maybe we take a couple years off until the next person tries it. And I think that's probably the frequency that keeps it special. If both series make these too big of an accommodation and there's a 3 or 4 hour gap now, larger than what it was this weekend, and then you get, the money's there and the sponsors there, you get 3 or 4 people trying it every year. And
that'd be awesome.
You think it'd be awesome? It would take, you think that would be better than, the sort of unique nature of one person being that sort of lone hero?
Sign me up for it going, you get a
5 drivers running the boat.
You got Scott McLaughlin, who's going to go the other
airplanes.
way.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You know what I mean? Even though I think and we've said this before, it'd be really, really tough for an IndyCar regular to do it, because they're definitely in the contention to win their biggest race of the year. Right. And so it'd be odd for the winner of the Indy 500 have to be like, all right, got to go. See you later. I got to go.
Yeah.
This NASCAR race.
Well, and I don't know why any IndyCar driver who is chasing after an Indy 500 win
would want the distraction. Yeah. That's the other side. I know people are like, I want to see the other way. And I'm like, but if I'm in their shoes, I'm like, why do I want the distraction?
Why would
Who cares? Yeah. Unless you've you're New Garden, you've won 3, you actually completed 3 in a row, and it's like, okay, but then you want 4. You want to join the
Right, you're trying to do something that nobody else has done.
yeah.
I mean, that's
So it's like
understandable.
I think the going, but it would be cool. I think it'd be awesome for motorsports to have 3 or 4 guys trying it each year. That'd be amazing.
Mhm.
Be super cool.
Well, I mean, what do you think? I think we had this conversation last year about the double. What do you think Hendrick paid for all this? What do you think it all cost?
I feel like we had the number for it, didn't we?
Was it 5 million plus?
Yeah, I think we were it was estimated to be somewhere around there.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a good amount of money.
Should it be reserved to part-time drivers? Like, this is seen as after you've completed your full-time career kind of venture. Jimmy
Nah.
Johnson comes to mind.
Nah.
No, I think actually what makes it special is that it's a driver chasing a championship.
Yeah. I think that part is big. I think it's, the worst part was it was set up for such a cool day in that he qualified on the front row for the Cup race.
Right.
They weren't going to make him go to the back if he missed.
Well, and they've been really
intros.
fast all year.
Yeah, and they've been really
Like, if
fast.
he-
So he goes runs top 5 and then wins the 600. Been like, man, that is badass. It went the exact opposite direction, but that would have been so cool. Even just finishes the Indy 500, finishes 10th, 15th. I don't care.
Where did he finish last year?
17th. But he was gonna be in the top 5, but had that, he sped on pit road when he locked the brakes up. They had the braking issue. He didn't.
The answer, by the way, was $3 million per year.
That's not.
Oh,
bad.
that's right. Yeah. Okay. It's less than what I had thought.
Yeah, that's not bad. People got
It definitely makes you respect and realize even more so what Kurt Busch was able to accomplish when he did it.
Big time. And Tony, I mean, for the fact that Tony did both, finished 6th and 3rd, spun out.
Well,
in
and
the Cup car right
I'm
off the bat.
I'm complimenting Kurt in a different way because Kurt had no IndyCar experience.
Yeah, good
Right.
point.
Tony Stewart was an IndyCar driver.
Yep, good point. That's a really good point.
Not at all to discount what Tony accomplished, but just given the experience level in those cars.
Yeah.
What about Robbie Gordon's attempts? I mean, he made 5 of them.
Right, but Robbie came from that background too.
Yeah, he was also an IndyCar. He was a kart driver. He drove PPG IndyCar World Series. I mean, definitely different to go. That's like almost an AJ Allmendinger doing it right now, who had IndyCar background, that sort of thing, and then goes into this, or Montoya, that sort of thing. Landon, first ever race on Amazon Prime, first Cup race primarily on streaming. What did we think? Did we enjoy this broadcast? Personally, thought it was awesome. A lot of what I expected. Obviously, I work with Adam Alexander every weekend on the Xfinity side. I know how good he is. I've worked with Dale and Steve. I know how good they are. Wasn't surprised to see them gel and mesh perfectly and that sort of thing. But I thought the way this broadcast was done was awesome. There were some cool new gizmos. I like the graphics package. A lot of the production staff are the same people I work with at NBC. I knew their level of talent and how good all of them are. So I wasn't surprised on that side. But I felt like some things were great. I had a conversation with Carl Edwards and Corley Joy. Carl and I actually talked about it twice over the weekend about him going to TV, like advice I would have for him, that sort of thing. I had pretty simple advice. It was be you. They hired you for you. Corey, I thought, but I thought Carl was great. Corey was awesome. Just overall a very cool vibe and a different vibe for NASCAR broadcasting than we've seen probably in the last 20 years.
Well, we get this time of year every year, which is that transition to the new broadcast partner. There's always a really good honeymoon stage. What's interesting is with Amazon, the honeymoon stage is kind of short, right? Because there's only a handful of races.
Yeah.
So
Did
I'm
anything
anxious
stick
to
out
see
to
kind
you?
of what it does. Not entirely. I think it's just more. I'm curious to see how the response to the industry, like the eyeballs and the numbers around it. I'm kind of curious how that all turns out and where it, how it looks for the sport. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean if you went on the Amazon front page during that day or on the app or went on the Amazon Prime app, it was right there. Now they probably could be targeting me because I'm definitely, my metadata says I'm a NASCAR fan. So who knows if that was the entire country that was getting that. But I'm really curious to see the numbers because I felt like there was a lot of promotion they did exactly what I hoped, which was, make it very obvious that they had this race and you could click play and watch right then and there. They did the cool, like, pre-stream thing that we've done in the past on streams ourselves, where it's like the countdown, just watching sort of ambient stuff and everything, which was awesome. I won't lie, I definitely took some naps through the day. I think I napped about 20 times. Had a late night Saturday night in Charlotte with some friends. So I was a little banged up on the day, but what a better day to be banged up than to have to watch racing all day, which was amazing. My favorite day of the year. But no, I wasn't surprised in any respect, but I felt that was cool. I am really curious to see numbers. It is Tuesday, May 27th, as we record this at 3:58 Eastern time. Those numbers have not come out yet, so it'll be interesting to see what it did.
Did the cars sound? Did they do something different with the audio?
So I heard that. I saw some comments about that. I don't know. I haven't. I didn't track that down. I can find out for sure. I would be surprised, but because it is just NBC production team, maybe it's the difference in stream capability versus over cable. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't think they really were doing anything different in terms of the transmission, the trucks, and that sort of stuff. I could be wrong, but I hadn't heard anything about that.
I feel like they were able to stream, and like this is a little bit of a technical side of things, a higher bit rate, because they weren't being forced to compress into a cable or over the air broadcast. So some of those advantages are a more clear audio feed that felt like the broadcast, even though other broadcasters broadcast in 1080, the bit rate affects how grainy it looks. Like right now, Parker, you have slow internet, so you're a little bit more grainy, even though you're a 1080p and stream. I mean, as a fan, it just felt like a more clear broadcast, and I think that's an advantage of being a streaming partner rather than a cable or over the air provider.
Well, I thought it was overall, they get a 10 out of 10 in my book. Great stuff. Cool to see the Tartan Dale Jr. back. Dale Jr. hadn't commented on a race in 18 months or something. So I think he's one of the best, and I know everyone knows I love Steve. So I think they're two of the best in the game, and Adam as well. So I enjoyed. Oh, and Trevor Bayne on pit road. I thought he did a great job. I thought he had really good stuff, and I know how tough that is. And to be thrust into doing your first time as a pit reporter in the longest race of the year, in a pretty high profile broadcast, I thought that he did a outstanding job, and he was really clear and concise, and great information, and very. I don't even know if I ever heard a mistake. So he knocked it out of the park.
So how do you get the bartender to change the channel to Amazon to watch the race?
You got to bring your Fire Stick with you.
Are we going to get to a point where maybe we're there already with some bars, and I just don't go to bars enough?
Yeah,
to watch live sports, but are we getting to a point where they all have it?
Yeah, because of Thursday Night Football, they all have it. So they all know they need to have Amazon Prime now when you go to the sports bars, for sure. It's not a big problem. I think that was some of the fear for some people, and I was like, no. Everyone's got it. Everyone's got it.
Yeah.
Hey, if you wanted the winning car from this past Coca-Cola 600 of Ross Chastain in diecast form, where would you get it?
Well, first off, you would go to spoilerdiecast.com and you would somehow get involved in buying whatever's in stock, because if you want the race winning car from this weekend, you probably got to wait 18 months from now. However, spoilerdiecast.com is going to fix that someday. Hopefully, we're all going to fix it. Who knows? Somebody needs to fix it. If you're a racing fan like us, you need to check out spoilerdiecast.com. These guys are crushing it. First off, using promo code MONEYLAP, and you will get free shipping on any order over $20. And the kicker, for the entire month of May, that's right, I said it, 4 more days, with the promo code MONEYLAP, you'll also get a free 64 scale diecast with a purchase. I actually got a tweet over the weekend. Somebody showed a picture of the 3 of them that they got.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It was awesome.
And it wasn't even total throwbacks. I know they promised some vintage throwbacks, Gordon, Earnhardt, Labonte, but this one was like, I think Scott McLaughlin was in there, and some other cool ones. Spoiler Diecast, one of the fastest growing diecast and racing merch companies out there, for good reason. They ship same or next day, so you get your order right away. It's not sitting in limbo forever. They have incredible selection. Like I said, go see what they have in stock. They have over 1,900 products in stock, so they have pretty much one of the largest in the inventory or in the indie industry right now. They're doing great. So whether you're hunting down a rare piece or you just need some stuff to rep your favorite driver, go to spoilerdiecast.com. Use code MONEYLAP. Take advantage of free shipping and that free diecast.
Thank you, spoilerdiecast.com. We appreciate you guys. They make this all happen. And, good buddies of ours with some great inventory. As you said, they have the largest they're the biggest inventory in the industry. Wait, you said you replaced inventory of industry at one point, but I didn't do it correctly.
I know. Well, I corrected myself a little bit after tripping over it. But.
It's all right. I'll let it go. We'll let it go. But you know what? They won't make a mistake at spoilerdiecast.com. Go check them out. Let's talk Xfinity Series real quick. Obviously, I was on the broadcast for that one, and pretty good race. Justin Allgaier was once again really good. Connor Zilic, super fast in his return since being out at Texas post the crash he had at Talladega. But when it came down to it, well, first and foremost, William Byron was in the race. He speeds on pit road. I call it a soft speeding penalty, by the way. When we have a cup driver in the race, I have a new joke, which is like, hey, when they're dominating, can we just get a soft speeding penalty? No one's injured, no one's hurt, there's no problems or whatever. They just got to see him drive through the pack. That happened to him. He sped in first gear coming out of their box. It's easy to do. And they, sort of made his way through the field, but wasn't really getting through it fast enough. Long green flag run. Justin Allgaier gets to a large lead. And then there's a caution. You under 30 to go. You got a set of tires. What would you do in that case, in that moment there, Landon?
Under 30?
Under 30. Like 25
everybody has a set.
to go. Everybody's got a set.
That's tough. That's where I want to stay out. But
you want to stay out?
I don't know. I would want to stay out, but Charlotte is not a track where new tires. I don't know, because if it goes 10 or 15 laps,
you're sunk.
It's
the second half of fall off. Well, let me give you the answer. You pit, and the 7 team was asking their driver to pit. He chooses the last moment not to pit because Sheldon Creed behind him is not going to pit because Sheldon's out of tires after having an issue. So it was Jesse Love. So those two cars basically stay out. It tricks Justin Allgaier, I think, in some respects, to thinking more were going to stay out than they did. I also asked Josh to do something, which was pull up the moment of the onboard where we hear the radio transmission where he's told to pit. And I was thinking about this yesterday for some reason, and I kind of heard it on the broadcast, but I didn't bring it up because I wasn't exactly sure. And that is that when his spotter says pit, it almost sounds like the first time he says it, it sounds like don't pit. Do we have that, Josh?
Yeah. Let me pull it up right now.
Yeah,
I think this is interesting.
You really hear a dispute of between the driver and the crew chief. So maybe he just never heard it.
Okay. Do you hear that? Play it one more time.
Well, dispute of between the driver and the crew chief. So maybe he just never heard it.
He said it's open pit.
Open pit, but it sounds like there's a part of me that sounds, I don't know, I hear like don't pit.
I get that. I get where that's coming from. That's interesting.
Yeah. So he doesn't pit. It puts him in a really tough position, which the one thing that saved him is we continually had quick cautions all the way through the next 18 laps or 20 some odd laps. That he did a absolutely valiant job to try and hold on, but in the end was not able to hold off William Byron on newer tires. Big miscue though. Kind of threw one away there. If he pits, he takes the tires. He's been the fastest car aside from William Byron, who's having to come back to the field anyway. I think it's a no-brainer. It's no discussion. He goes on and wins that race.
He's that JRM crew is pretty darn good at Charlotte.
Yeah.
Their cars.
Super fast.
So hate to throw that one away.
Mm-hmm. You hate to see any of them get away. I think if you look at this season of Allgaier, you could make an argument he has 3 to 6 more wins.
It's funny because that's
issues.
You know where that's so unlike him too? is he's usually the guy that's like just kind of there and then steals a win.
Yeah.
It's kind of unusual to see him be week over week the best car and not get a win.
It's and I think though historically he has funny mistakes that he makes here and there, but
Right.
I don't want to discredit his dominance and what we've seen the last couple of years out of him at Charlotte. I mean, he had led 40 plus laps in the last 3 years and ended up leading something like 80 plus laps in this race. So he's really, really good there. They're really good there.
I love how our notes here say that the field loses its mind at the end of the race.
Am I wrong?
It's
That's
just
Josh.
Is that actually just pre-printed in every show notes in the Xfinity section?
Yeah. Well, when
It's
you get
just-
mismatched tires late in a race on a mile and a half with restarts that allow you to make some big moves, you're going to get that. And we saw it for sure with a bunch of young
Charlotte is
drivers
such a
trying to
good
win their
race.
first race. Some trying to win, Zilla's trying to win his first race on an oval. Nick Sanchez trying to win his first race. And a couple others throughout there with Jeb Burton and Sheldon Creed and Jesse Love who are on older tires. And it's just, you get that mix and there's going to be carnage for sure each and every time, especially with mixed tires on restarts. Always sort of recipe. One last thing about the Xfinity Series. You'll love this. It's a bit of a technical thing. I was talking to a bunch of teams this past weekend. And, we had that disqualification from Jesse Love at Rockingham with the moving of the U-bolt and the truck arm.
Yep.
Well, the NASCAR then found further cars having some pretty large movement in the rear end of their race cars. Let it be known to all the teams that they would start cracking down on this post-Charlotte. Kind of put them on notice going into Charlotte, but I don't think they were cracking down too hard on it. And now heading to Nashville, they absolutely will be cracking down on it. Also, this is funny. A lot of the teams telling me that the rear deck lids of those cars kept growing rearward. How's that happen?
Growing rearward.
Yeah.
Were they sliding them back somehow?
Yeah, they were sliding them back.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. More downforce.
Yeah, just getting that spoiler back as far as I can.
Get the spoiler back, get the roof to depress, all those things. And you can potentially find some more downforce, some more speed. Get the rear end
It's
to move.
funny, like we're in this space with the Xfinity Series where the rules haven't changed in a long time, right? So now the tricks that these teams are doing are really not innovative in a sense of like they're not discovering new frontier. These are all just there's a whole bag of tricks, right?
Yep.
And they're playing their bag of tricks depending on what the officials are looking at on a week-to-week basis. That's literally it. That's the game they're playing. So somewhere along the lines over the last few, weekends or all year or, even dating back to next year, these teams are like I don't know why for some reason, but like Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11, like have identified in the casino who's watching what cameras, how to get into this area, and so like inspection, they know who looks at what and when, and depending on the official here and there, they have a finger on the pulse of what's getting looked at, right? They're not really innovating anything new. They're just like pulling the string in the area that they think that they can get away with it. And that's mostly as a result of no rule changes. There's nothing new. There's not a whole lot to innovate because everything's already been thought of. Everything's already been done. And everything is already accounted for in the rule book for the most part. So it's just a matter of what can you get away with? What can you push this week and that week and the next week?
And they see what people are getting away with. They push the issue in certain areas. They see that NASCAR's not paying attention to an area 1 week. So they think, okay,
Right.
Hey, the next 3 weeks, let's try and push this thing. And it's just a game of cat and mouse and constant.
And
evolution.
whether it's even week by week or moment by moment, right?
Yeah.
It's pushing your car through the inspection line and seeing that they're not looking at the deck lids this week in the way that they normally do. So you can go ahead and pull on that little brace that's designed to break when you pull on it so that the deck lid compresses, right? Or the windshield or the whatever.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't know if, for the listeners out there, I don't know if you let us know in the comments. I don't know if you enjoy that part of racing, if that's interesting to you. It's kind of fun on one hand. It isn't on the other. I can argue it both ways, but like I guess I have always liked and appreciated that part of the sport.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm curious about that just came to mind is, are the officials the same week to week? Who are
Yes.
doing the inspections?
Yeah,
Okay.
primarily it is, especially your top ones. Now, obviously, they rotate a little bit, but yeah, primarily you're dealing with the same officials each week.
Okay.
So
That's-
yeah, you can see the tendencies of a singular human to make some of your choices for sure.
Interesting.
I knew that's
So
where you were going.
I was like, when you're an MLB and you're preparing for a game, you look, oh, who's the home plate umpire? Does he call balls or strikes differently? Or if you're going into a football game, are they more likely to throw a flag in the circumstance or not?
Yep. Nope,
Well, I
you can
do think
definitely
that those
track
guys
it.
rotate, their roles that they play.
They do a little bit. Yep, that does happen, and I think there's also rotation. Just they're not. I don't think anyone does 38 weeks really, or not many. Not many do 38 weeks, but
Right.
there's you will run into the same officials though often in the same positions. So in trucks, I ran the truck race, finished 14th, had about a 19th place truck. We just were not that fast. But I got to follow Corey Heim, who dominated late in the race, green flag cycle, and I saw something interesting, and you'll appreciate this, Landon. I tweeted about this. Some
Hey,
people were. What's that?
You skipped over something. I'm sorry to interrupt this train of thought. Did I read that Sammy Smith had his 8th DQ of the year?
No, he's the 8th DQ of the year.
Not the 8th DQ.
Yeah.
They were underweight. They're not going to.
I'm like looking at your notes. I'm like,
that's on me, not on Parker. That's on me. I apologize.
Sammy Smith got DQ'd for weight, and it's the 8th DQ of the year. Man, NASCAR's not messing around this year.
No, they're not. They're really.
Neither is IndyCar.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. We'll get into that. So I just want to quickly talk about this because I think Corey Heim is a definite understated personality, real reserved personality, right? And he's obviously in what we would consider maybe the best truck in the series, or whatever you want to say in that sense. But he dominated Charlotte. He won by a bajillion seconds. And I got to follow him for like 15 laps, and that was about as long as I could stay with him before he drove away, and I probably had better tires. But the thing I saw him doing into turn 3 and 4 at Charlotte, like where 3 and 4 at Charlotte, you have the wall that cuts back on down the straightaway, so you can almost like turn up right to get more angle, to get a bigger arc. But if you go, it's almost like enticing to drive it way deeper, try to get a bigger arc. But if you do it incorrectly, you just never get back to the bottom, right?
Yep.
And then if you go lower, if you go too low, there's a ginormous bump. It's almost like a jump, and you see trucks and cars spark over it when they go down there. When I was following him, I thought I was doing a pretty good arc at this point because I'm on new tires, I'm running the bottom, and I watched him enter so high that I was like, oh, he's going to run the wall. Interesting. He then just turns the car down, the truck, gets to the blue line, floats off the corner, and does that like 6 or 7 laps in a row in front of me. With such a level of arc, I was like, he's basically heading to Kannapolis and then turning back down the track. And I was like, God damn, that was impressive. And he did it with precision of like nailing it lap after lap. I tried it after that a couple times. I couldn't get my truck to do it. But I was like, damn, that was impressive. So for all the haters out there, I was watching him do something that was really, really damn impressive at that place. And there's a lot of confidence that comes with a great truck, and you have to have a car that can do that, or truck. But I still thought it was really, really impressive what he was doing. Yeah. I thought you'd appreciate that. You know how hard that is.
Well, that is I watched Kyle Busch do that in a truck. The first I ran a truck race there in 2007, I think. 2008. 2008 I ran the truck race there. And in practice, I like picked up tons of speed because I followed Kyle Busch, and he was doing exactly what you just described. Almost looked like he was going to run the fence, and then he just all of a sudden turns down the hill and runs across the bottom.
Yep.
And it's something for me, for some reason, my entire life racing at Charlotte, and I've run well at Charlotte. In fact, I typically run well at Charlotte. But it was like catching lightning in a bottle to be able to drive the track that way. So I never found a way for it to be like repeatable in a sense that like that's how I run Charlotte now. I've just had moments where I really arced it in and ran it like that. I've had moments where I bomb it in on the bottom and try to hook a line. I don't know. I could never figure it out. But there was that weekend in a truck, I did drive it that way. And I've run it that way in Xfinity car too before, where it's like you just follow the wall on entry and then you just kind of turn it down the hill and then
It sticks.
drive it off the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, I really haven't done it in major fashion since 2011 when I ran there, and we did a bunch of testing in that 26 car I drove. That was like a Team Penske car, and I qualified like 5th or something, 5th to 7th, somewhere up there, and was running the top 5 when I wrecked in lap 2 like an idiot. But I did that we had like 2-day tests, and I figured it out and did it. And then like 2013 Xfinity, I was doing that, and then I'd say in recent years, it's kind of funny you say that. I don't feel like I have such a good feel for it to be doing it, and so I'm more of like a get it to, if I'm running the bottom, I just get it to the blue line.
What's weird is when you get it done, when you do it wrong, you get that washboardy feeling with the right rear, and you'll just chatter loose all the way across turn 3 and 4, and it feels so bad, and it screws you up so much that it'll make you wonder why you were ever trying to do it in the first place.
Exactly, and or you lose the front end like through the middle, and you just have to like basically park
You're like,
it.
what was I doing?
You're like, what the hell? Did I just miss the corner?
This track. That's not how you drive this track. Let me just go back to chopping the entry and hooking the line.
Exactly. 100%.
And what's also weird about that corner is you will I've had times at Charlotte where I had to bomb it into turn 3 and drive it super deep and use a ton of brake, and then I've had times where it's like you have to lift before the dash lines down the straightaway.
Yeah.
And either one's faster. And there's no, I feel like I know I can drive it both ways, comfortable driving it both ways. I just don't know. I don't know. It just depends on the car. It depends on that day. Depends on how I'm driving that day, I guess.
Yep.
But
100%.
part of me thinks that that's just part of what makes that track special. Well, one thing that people don't realize is that backstretch is pretty well downhill. The way you just made me think that you didn't even realize that.
Had no idea, but thanks for the update.
Yeah, the backstretch is really well downhill, and so it just makes the entry to that turn 3. That's part of the reason why that entry to turn 3 is so unique.
Well, I've been going there for like 15 years. I never knew that. Go me. Huh.
Yeah,
I knew about it at North Wilkesboro. Didn't know about it there.
Yeah, it's very. I say very similar to North Wilkesboro. Obviously, it's a longer straightaway, but yeah, it's similar to North Wilkesboro. That's why breaking into the bus stop in the Roval is so sketchy. Going downhill, buddy.
You just blew my mind.
You're like, I've run 1,000 laps at this track.
I'm like, wait a second, what? Yeah. I know about Homestead too. Homestead is up lopsided a little bit. Like the back straightaway is way higher than the front straightaway.
Higher than the front, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now on that note, I feel like I should probably just walk away.
You're like,
thanks for the up. Where the hell was this info last week?
I need to re-prep for this race.
Yeah, can you get me back to last week with this knowledge, or like the last 15 years with this knowledge? Why has no one ever told me this?
All the time we've spent together talking about racetracks and race cars, and you just learn something new every day.
And I feel like I knew everything about that place, and then you just blew my mind in one fellow swoop. Just done. Ridiculous. Well, let's talk about the absolute worst. I don't even know if you can call it a race of the weekend. That was F1 at Monaco. They had to do 2 mandatory stops this time, which was a new rule to try to spice it up. And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't a single on-track pass.
You are wrong. There were 2.
2?
One,
okay.
There were, 3 if you consider going back and forth a pass. But that was, I believe it was Antonelli and Bortoletto. And Bortoletto ended up in the tire barrier lap 1.
Yep.
And then Lance Stroll made a pass on Hülkenberg going into the chicane out of the tunnel.
Wow. Scintillating stuff. Okay, I never even saw those 2. Nonetheless, at the front, that really didn't happen. Max Verstappen their strategy was to try and get a red flag after just doing 1 stop so they could get a free strategy. That was the strategy. And I felt I likened it to the idea of just like YOLO. Like, screw it, we got no other choice. Just do 1 stop and then see if we get a free stop and we just end up in the lead. Leclerc followed Lando Norris real closely because Max Verstappen was kind of backing them up and holding them up as best he could. And he still could never even get a chance to make a pass.
So
it was pretty awful to watch.
Am I right in saying that this was like the F1 version of watching the Cup cars run 80% at super speedway, saving fuel? Were they even running? Like, were they trying to control the field at one point?
Well, Max
was
for sure. He was backing them up. And there was a couple other groups
Why would
that
he
were doing
do
the same
that?
thing.
Why was he doing that?
V-Carb did it, and same with Williams. But I'll let you explain.
So, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. So they were doing this to put them to back up to their teammates or some bullshit.
So
I don't even know. I wasn't even paying attention.
I'll explain it. I can't believe on the West Coast I was the one that caught all of this. I was half asleep for it, but
I was leaving the airport. So,
so with the leader situation, I don't entirely know. I think Max was just trying to get them to be Charles and Lando and all of them to be close, because that could be the red flag he was looking for, was trying to cause them to kind of get all caught up on each other. But initially with V-Carb, what the goal was is get one car to back up the field so then the car in front could get a free pit stop. Do that twice, swap cars, and then do that again. And then Williams saw that, and on the Sky Sports broadcast, James Vowles was the team principal they were talking to, and you could tell he was just so annoyed that he had to then do that in order to secure points for Williams. So then Albon got his 2 free stops. Sainz then swapped with Albon. Albon held the field back, and Sainz got their 2 free stops. And basically that's how the strategy played out.
So basically, you can't pass. You physically can't pass because the cars are too damn big on this track. And we've talked about how they're the size of Suburbans, which is just ridiculous, and they can't touch. And therefore, the newest tactic is to literally use one car, sacrifice one car to hold up the field. It's like out of a video game.
It doesn't
allow
even
the other car to
sacrifice.
pit.
Because then at the end of the race, Sainz and Albon swapped. So then they just got their original finishing position. Anyways, they just held the field back. Let's see, 20, 40, 60, 120, 2 minutes. They held the entire field back for 2 minutes in total so that they could accomplish
that, but
it.
I'm saying it's just the stupidest thing of all time.
George Russell got annoyed and just ran through the chicane and then got a drive-through penalty because of it.
This is the stupidest.
Oh my God.
Like, I love Monaco, but we just got to make the cars damn smaller. That's all it is. It's the only fix. So
That's the only solution. But they're gonna end up doing something dumb like changing the track.
that's the thing, and it's gonna ruin everything.
They're gonna ruin everything.
Ruin it all.
Go
No.
watch a Formula E race. That's the only race worth watching at that track.
Yeah, because the cars are small.
Yeah.
They're tiny. Why are F1 cars big? I don't understand it. They're not supposed to. F1 cars are supposed to be small. They're supposed to be the idea of like a tiny little rocket ship as the basis of them. And now they're just these gargantuan Suburbans going around racetracks. It makes no sense. They made 1,000 horsepower 30 years ago with 1/4 the size of a car. Bullshit. That's what I think. Let's talk about a way better open wheel race. The Indy 500 happened on this day. It was a little late, as we said, so it was delayed 20 minutes or so for moisture in the area and some rain on the racetrack, and then they got that cleaned up and dried up, and then they're under the pace laps. And Scott McLaughlin, in probably one of the more sad moments I've witnessed as a fan in racing, crashes under the pace laps. Probably one of the favorites to win the race. Was one of the favorites going into pole qualifying when he crashed out of turn 2 in practice, and was visibly emotional, distraught. His interview said one of the worst days of his life. I empathize with him, but I can't even imagine what was going through and what was going through his head at that moment in the biggest race, a sold out crowd, first time since 2016, since the 100th running of the Indy 500, and a lot of attention on the race, I felt like, and we end up seeing that with massive TV ratings, and he wrecks on the pace lap because it's so cold. This reminded me, I knew of 1992 was Robert Guerrero, Roberto Guerrero, who
Mhm.
wrecked out of the pole in the Oldsmobile, Menards Oldsmobile, on the pace laps when it was super cold. So this is not without precedence, but absolutely devastating before we even got going.
Have you ever done anything like that?
The closest I've come to that would be Martinsville 2014 Cup, where we started dead last because we had all those issues with Swan at the time. We were running broken parts. I think I had like a broken steering box in practice and qualifying, and then they tried to fix that, and it was still broken, whatever. And then we got in the race. It was a super cold day, and I literally let the field like kind of just get away, and I was just going to like hang out first couple laps, then start moving forward. And everyone checked up into turn 3, and my brakes were just not warm enough yet. This was like a super, super cold day. And I slammed the brakes, locked the rears, get stuck on the curb. I was like, God damn, send me home. I remember I got out. We just had a horrible start that year. I got out. My PR girl's like, hey, you got to go to the infield catch center. And I was like, that's fine, but can I just go home afterwards? I just want to go home.
Oh, jeez.
That's the closest. What about you?
Well, probably the closest I ever felt to how Scott felt there. I missed a shift in qualifying at Talladega for the ARCA race
Oh,
and DNQ'd because of it.
oh no.
Second to third, just
How did you ever do super speedway qualifying again? Because that's like the biggest
my
fear.
God. Oh God, it was But I did I ever tell you about the time my steering wheel came off on the pace laps for the Coke 600?
No. What?
Well, it didn't come off. I took it off.
What were you? What?
So I always used to do this until this happened, and then I did a little bit after that, and then I just kind of like stopped. But okay, so you know how when you reset, you reclock your wheel, like you pull down on the backstretch and you stop, and then you reclock your wheel.
Yeah.
Well, for forever I never used to do that. I would just find a spot in the corner where I could let go of the wheel, and I would just pop the wheel off and put it back on while I was rolling.
No.
I did it all the time.
No. New fear unlocked.
And so, yeah, so like oval tracks or whatever, because car, wants to turn left because we have caster split and all that stuff. I would just, on the pace laps, I'd pull out on the racetrack. And then when I going through the turn, depending on the banking or however fast I needed to go, I would just kind of like let go of the wheel, get to a spot where I felt like the car was running true, and then I would just pop the wheel off and reclock it, and then I'd be good to go. And I didn't have to stop. It's no big deal. Well, one time in the Coke 600, I did that, and at the same time, like, I didn't get the wheel back on, and the car started changing direction.
No.
And I like drove it through the infield and then got the wheel back on and drove it back out. My spotter was like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yep. Don't worry about it, boys.
I'm good. Don't worry about it. Just took the wheel off for a second, but I'm good.
It was without steering for a sec, but we're good now. We're good.
It's like,
how'd you run in that one?
My controller came unplugged.
Yeah.
Controller disconnected.
How'd you run in that one?
I can't remember. You know what? I don't even know if it was a Coke 600 or the Bank of America 500. But I was driving the 40 car, so you can look at the races that I ran at Charlotte in the 40 car.
Just find the time on the pace laps when the 40 just veered off into the infield for a second.
I don't know if it's on TV or not.
Hey, you okay? Yeah, no, we're all good.
Yeah, that would not have been a good one too.
Remember Dale Jr. did it at where did he do that? Daytona 500 qualifying or something?
Happened to Denny Hamlin one time, Daytona 500.
That was Denny Hamlin. I thought Dale Jr. happened to him too. Because remember,
and I
Dale
think with Denny, it like destroyed his car, right?
Yeah, and Dale had it happen where he grabbed the center. That was Pocono?
Yeah, it was at Pocono.
Yeah. Yeah. I always check it like 3 or 4 times about that. So like when I reclock my wheel, I'll like do the hit, pull. Okay, we're good. And if I do it on the backstretch, I do the same thing. I'll roll a little bit, hit pull, then I go. Massive fear to think that thing could come off. All right, well, let's talk further about the Indy 500. Larson ends up wrecking. We kind of talked about that. He downshifted and lost the rear. But if we get towards the end of the race, I thought it was a pretty compelling race throughout. There was a lot of mistakes made by different leaders. Our boy Connor Daly looked like he was in the fight for the win. I had picked him to win. I was feeling like I was going to be an absolute legend, but he would have been more legendary for actually winning the race. I just picked him. And then he gets the right rear tire starts to go away from him. He starts to tank. He has to pit too early. They were on the perfect strategy. He has to pit too early, which put them in a fuel save mode, and he started to lose the rear tires again towards the end of the race. So he gets the top 10. But Alex Palou and Marcus Ericsson come out of the pits with about 20 some odd, maybe a little bit more than that to go. And then Alex Palou does probably one of the more surprise passes I've seen for the lead in the Indy 500 in a long time. Down the front stretch, doesn't really have a run till Marcus sort of lifts because there's two lappers in front of him into one. And Palou just jumps out of line, shoves it down the inside, makes the pass. That would end up being the winning pass. Marcus made some runs at Palou, but could just never get the real, slingshot run he needed because you had the two lappers ahead of the leaders that were basically towing along the leader, which was so unfortunate.
I have questions about that.
Okay.
Should they have pulled off? I don't understand. I'm not forcing an opinion one way or the other. I just was watching that race thinking to myself, if you were one of those lappers, wouldn't you want to bow yourself out of leading the field of the Indy 500 in the closing laps of the race? Like, one of the worst things that could ever happen to you as a driver is affect the race in a negative way.
Yep.
Right? Wreck in front of the leaders, or the leader try to pass you and you wreck him. Why did those guys not get out of the way? What's happening in IndyCar that's different than what my general thought of racing etiquette?
My outside perception is that if they stay on the lead lap and there's a caution, obviously they can gain a lot more positions, right? It is the most important race of the year. It pays the most. Every position pays a lot of money, right? I think there's that. I would have thought with like 10 to go, there might have been like hey, let's not be a part of this.
Right. And that
sort of
response right there, I want you to continue, but that response right there is enough for me, is to be like, cool, fine, right? Like, I'm, as a professional, I've raced at a professional level. Everybody on the track has a right to race. I'm not big on like, lappers, get out of the way. It's like, no, they all have a race that they're in. That answer right there is enough for me to be like, cool, no worries. Yep. But I just, like, watching that race, I'm like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? Get out of the way.
I felt the same way because it ruined what would have been probably an epic battle. I still think Ericsson took some runs at him that were hard to see for the layman eye, but at the end of the day, and I think you said it best, I can appreciate the Indy 500 even if Palou was leading by 5 seconds at the end. Like, it's the Indy 500. You look at that crowd. There's no way it isn't just such a big feel. It's the same thing as watching the Masters. It's the, you can tell it's enormous. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a good race. It just is a good race, no matter what. It just is.
It is. And it was still a battle. Still like 5 or 6 cars battling at the end. The
fuel mileage. It's if I wanted to pick it apart, I do think that I'm ready for a new package, the IndyCar at that track. Like, and if nothing else, maybe the fact that the lap cars sort of holding the field up at the end, pretty much. Like, this is a race to win the Indy 500. And I know that you said Ericsson made some moves, but like, it almost looked like just a parade.
Yeah.
Like, this is the Indy 500 and he couldn't YOLO it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's stuck. And that right there, we're used to seeing the leaders swap so much that you don't see what's happening behind them. Right. A lot. And I'm not saying there is never any overtaking, but like, we're just used to watching the leaders in those closing laps that you don't think about that 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th are just stuck. Right. And I just think we're getting to a point with this package. The drivers know it. The teams know it. And it's like, if you're not one of the first 2 cars racing for the win, the Indy 500, you're not really going anywhere at the end.
That's a great point. Because if you look at all the things we loved in the last couple of years, last year, it was Newgarden and Pato O'Ward. Newgarden going around the outside with the huge, pole down the backstretch, and then incredible pass around the outside of O'Ward. a couple years prior is the same thing. I think back to like 2014, Ryan Hunter-Reay going through the grass with the pass down the backstretch. It's like you want that slingshot effect, not so much that they just you don't want to be the leader, but enough that someone can take a run and utilize it, which was not the case for Ericsson. And it's sort of like they were the third and fourth car in line of this train, because if you looked at the two lappers, which I think was DiFrancesco and I can't remember who the other one was, they were swapping positions down the straightaway. They were literally leapfrogging each other, trying to propel each other forward. So like they were able to swap. That's probably what we would have gotten out of Palou and Ericsson if those two guys weren't there, which was so frustrating.
I mean, it seems like you can be in third in line and, maybe kind of make a move or capitalize on a mistake, and jump two cars or at least like I said, capitalize on a mistake and get to second. And then if you're second, you can get to first. But it just doesn't seem like fourth to 10th you're stuck.
Yeah.
Stuck.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I had to kind of watch that and I'm like, man, I'm ready for a new package. I want to see something different.
Yeah. And I thought with the cold temperatures, the one thing I did think that would come from that is a lot of slingshot passes, because there'd be a lot of grip. Right. So I was like, oh, man, maybe this will be like one of those crazy ones. Because that used to be, 10 years ago, if you got a hot day, they were kind of struggling for grip. You didn't get as many passes. But if it was a cold day and they could just start slingshotting each other, it was going to be epic. Right. And it's just like we didn't get that for whatever reason. I don't know if that's the hybrid, which also made the cars harder to drive this year, as we know, with all the crashes that happened. Maybe they need to make some adjustments to the package to allow them to have more slingshot passes, maybe utilize the hybrid more in some respects. I don't know. So it was still the Indy 500 with a big crowd and a massive crowd watching on TV, as I mentioned.
It's really turning into a cultural event.
Yes, over
if you're on Twitter at all.
It was over 7 million people watching throughout the race, peaking at 8.4 million, the most since 2008 in 17 years. Great for American motorsports. Let's give that. I'm just going to give it a clap real quick. Hold on. I love to hear that. I love to see it. That's just super cool for what I think is. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate that. I love to see that because to me, that's an important race in American motorsports. And NBC started to resurrect it in the last couple of years from probably its darkest days. And now, with all the promotion Fox did and all the F1 connections I feel like it has in the last couple of years between F1 prospects that are now racing IndyCar full-time, F1 teams between, McLaren that's there and Andretti, which is getting an F1 team, all those guys, Pato Award doing practice for McLaren. You have Palou that was in discussions to go to F1. I think
it's a big deal.
It's helped. It's helped up the idea of like, this is something to respect. And that brought a lot of eyeballs, and that was really, really cool to see. So yeah, you just love to see it, man. You love to see it. People watching motorsports. Good old Indy 500. What did you think of the race, though, overall?
I mean, I just thought it was Indy 500. I thought that maybe this was going to be Connor's year.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't that. I mean, he always runs well in that midsection of the race. So there's kind of something strategy wise. I know that's probably playing out that he's always up there in that sort of midsection to 2/3 of the way through the race. But it just seemed like he was comfortable with his car, the moves that he was making. So I was really hopeful for that. And then I was especially hopeful, not that I was rooting against the guy, but when Newgarden sort of fell out there with 30 to go.
Yep.
I thought, oh, like that really could be Connor's chance. Cause it looked to me like Newgarden was just kind of marching his way through the field. And I guess I didn't pay close enough attention to the rest of them during that time period, but cause it wasn't like it was a Daly versus Newgarden race. For some reason, those were the two drivers that I was like paying attention to. Right. Yep. And so,
you texted me at the end in our group and said, I'm crying when Palou won. Generational.
I was.
Shannon was with me watching the end, and she started being like, are you tearing up? I was like, slightly. I know what it means. I know what it means to do that. Amazing. I mean, I loved his quote before this. He was like, my life won't be complete until I win the Indy 500. And it was like, boom. You knew it meant a lot.
You're getting me right now. It's such a good race. Such a
good race. You mentioned Connor being comfortable with his car, by the way, before we move on. He was so comfortable, he let it be known last night at the Champions Dinner that he actually peed in his car in that 30-minute holdup that they had. So he got real comfortable with the car. Real comfortable. Yeah. Had to get some weight out of it. That might have been the puddle that Scott McLaughlin hit.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Sky back. Let's talk next week. Make some picks for all the racing. It continues. We have F1, NASCAR, and IndyCar all racing again on the same weekend. So maybe the greatest weekend of motorsports is 2 weekends in a row. Yeah.
Cup. I'm gonna take Chastain again.
Boom.
2 in a row for Ross. Xfinity. Austin Hill from Dawsonville. Trucks. Parker, are you running trucks?
No.
Oh. Well, then nobody's going to win the truck race. Corey Heim. Easy. F1, Barcelona, Spain, Alex Palou.
He's going to be the first Spaniard to win the Indy 500 and the Spanish Grand Prix back-to-back in the same double weekends. Even though he's not even in the F1 race, he'll find a way.
Come on, Lando. I'm just picking Lando Norris every week for the here on out.
That's a good pick.
So just dig back in and get that championship. IndyCar, Alex Palou. Come on.
So he was going 6 for 7, you're saying?
That would be insane.
It is nuts. This is the craziest start ever. He's absolutely dominating. For Cup at Nashville, I'm going to pick. Who am I picking? Who'll
be low key really good at Nashville this weekend?
Who's that?
You should probably pick.
Who's
77.
That? Oh yeah, Hocevar. Yeah, he was damn close last week, and I did pick him to win a race. So
and he's good at Nashville.
He is. He's really good. Xfinity, I'm going to go with my same pick from last week. He finished second, but he's going to get done this week. That's going to be Connor Zilic. Trucks, I am going.
For the record, I just
Kyle
wanted
Busch.
to say Austin Hill from Dawsonville.
Yeah, I know. It's just hilarious. But he does actually run really well at Nashville. He's finished top 10 all the starts, finished top 5 or 4th in the last 2. So
I know.
Yeah, you did your research. I know. F1, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. Just give me that. Easy. And IndyCar, I believe the best way to bounce back from absolute devastation, emotional heartbreak, gut-wrenching situation to watch. Scotty McLaughlin going to win Detroit. He's got a lot to prove. So, Josh, who you got?
Oh, okay. Larson is just one of those guys that he's a goldfish. So Nashville's a new week, and that means he's going to be cashing in his all of his bad luck for this week. So I'm going to say Larson wins the Cup Series race. I'm going to throw up Ross Chastain to win the Xfinity Series race. He's in that 9 car. I think that's I think he's going to go back-to-back, but it's not going to be the back-to-back that everyone else is expecting. And then the Truck Series. Is there any special entries other than Kyle Busch there? No? Maybe?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think there's only 32 trucks, so no.
Okay. Then I'm going to join you in the Busch train. And then obviously I've been a Piastri supporter almost all year, I think, except for race 1. So go with that. And then IndyCar, look, yeah, Palou is just gonna. He's just gonna.
Guys.
Actually, you know what? No. I'm gonna go Marcus Ericsson.
Okay. DQ'd afterwards, by the way. I didn't even get into that. They DQ'd him from the Indy 500. Did you see Scott Dick, by the way, before we go into reviews, Scott Dixon during the Champions Dinner offered Palou a all expenses paid 5-week vacation.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, he's like, you're gone, buddy.
Yeah,
whatever you need for all of it.
It's on me. You just go on vacation, and I think Alan Beswick said it best. He goes that he'll come back and probably still be the championship leader.
Right. Oh my God.
Let's talk some reviews. We did get some new Apple reviews out there. We're at 224 now. We appreciate you guys. Put them out there. Also, if you want to leave comments on the YouTube or Spotify, we will read those in this section next week. But this one says, Brandon Bilcox, not sure what to put here. What's 5 stars? What's poppin' team? I started listening to the show earlier this year. Sorry I was late to the party, but I've listened every week since. You all give great insight and tell it like it is. You keep it real, and that's why I'll keep listening as long as the show is still going. We're going to go forever. One question for Landon. Do you have any stories about driving for Morgan Shepherd a few years back? I know you mainly start and park for him, but now how was his equipment compared to other teams? You got a lot of speed out of his cars and even managed a top 15 finish at Homestead. Really educated fan.
That was a good time. There was nothing a whole lot special about that car. Just a couple interesting tidbits. I set it up myself at Phoenix, which was fun. Which was really the last race I qualified it before the pandemic. We went all the way out there and didn't have a crew chief or really anybody to work on the car. Just some guys helping. And I kind of knew what I wanted, so I just made it happen. And Morgan was always really supportive of me. He's kind of a hard nose. He's a little bit of a stubborn guy, and but for some reason he trusted me with his car. So when I worked with Case Callenbach when I first started working with Morgan, and him and Morgan would get in, they'd get in disagreements or whatever. I could always be the tiebreaker. But I'm pretty, I said there's nothing really special about that car, but that's because I'm pretty sure the reason we were so fast is because that was the biggest motor I've ever driven in the Xfinity series. There's no way it was legal.
I remember you qualified top 10 at Vegas, was it?
Yeah, qualified 9th at Vegas.
Yeah, 9th. And we were just like, whoa.
That thing had big steam. Big steam.
You're past the statute of limitations. You're good now.
I don't know. There's no, I don't know. Like, go dig it. Go call Childress and see if you can dig it out of their shop and inspect it and see if it's legal or not. I'm sure it was legal. But it was a
big motor.
It was big motor. It was big steam.
Awesome. My name Moss says, great racing show, 5 stars, good coverage and insight in all my favorite racing series. Def helping a NASCAR fan learn more about F1, except for probably today. And Indies, I'm new fan to those. Parker's also a cool guy. I like him very much. Thank you. I'm glad I read.
I do too.
Oh my God. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for writing that, Landon. Also on YouTube, if you're watching this, send it to some friends. We need 80 more subscribers to hit 5,000 on YouTube. We'd appreciate that. And
5,000 subscribers on YouTube?
Yeah, we're just
almost.
We're getting there.
Almost.
We're growing like a weed. We're out of control. Actually, you know what? No, we're growing at a perfect pace for us, and a pace that we will continue doing this forever. So, even if you don't like, to our one listener, Denny, we appreciate you. It's really fun. We get all these subscribers considering we only have one listener. Shout out to Denny. And CKY Moto said, "Can I fill in for you on the group chat show?" No, it also won't be happening this week because we're doing this on Tuesday. That would have been Wednesday. Not going to happen. So,
okay,
no group chat.
That's news to me. All right, I won't show up tomorrow to record.
That's great. You're welcome.
I'll let AJ know.
You should probably take the day off, Josh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm taking the day off tomorrow.
Wait, guys, it was the greatest weekend, greatest day in motorsports this past weekend. We might not have it again. And one guy who didn't have that great of a time in the greatest weekend in motorsports. I raced against him on Friday night, but I didn't even see him the whole race. He finished 5th. I finished 14th. Kyle Busch. We forgot.
Next time.
It was a Tuesday. It was Memorial Day yesterday. That would have probably messed things up. Totally forgot to let him know about the show change, time, day, everything, link, you name it. We'll have to fix it next week. Thanks for watching, listening. Peace.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Money Lap. If you like this show,
Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Share it with friends. We want to spread the word of great motorsports shows, of which we're somewhere up and around there. I'm not exactly sure where, but nonetheless, you can also reach out to us anytime on across social media or at our website, themoneylap.com, or at our email, friends@themoneylap.com. And of course, you can always leave us a review. 5 stars gets you on this very show. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Goodbye.